Let's see. Yeah, we have audio. Look at that. How about that? Let me turn this off. Let me turn that off. I want to say welcome, everyone. Let me adjust this a little bit. It's interesting because when I adjust things, a lot of times they're a little different. I sit up straighter or whatever. My collar behaves a little bit better. Anyway, my name is Richard Taylor. This is Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live for those who are not familiar with it, but I think most of you are. Let me turn off that scrolling. And let me just turn on my, let me see here. Do I have 1 second? Let's turn on the Maple Cam. This is a live cam, one of my backyard cams. Here's my other one, the other backyard cam. And we have some other cams today. We have all kinds of cams. Let's go back to this one. Here's another cam. We'll call it the barbecue cam. This is the barbecue that lives in my backyard. So we got all kind of cams. We got this cam, the overhead cam, and then we got the main cam. 5 cameras. 5 cameras today. How about that? Justine says, good morning, Richard. Cannot wait for the start. Looks exciting. Ernest says, good morning. Good morning to everyone. Good morning to everyone. So there's not a whole lot of new news for Final Cut Pro, but we're going to go over what's going on with the summit. And I get a kick out of some of these people that are predicting the event that's happening in November with the Silicon Mac. Oh, big discovery, big discovery. We've been talking about that since the middle of the summer. That's going to happen. So that's not a surprise at all. We've been talking about the Global Summit, Final Cut Pro Global Summit, being going to be the centerpiece for all Apple events for November, including the Silicon Mac, including a new version of Final Cut Pro. That's what's going to be happening in the middle of November. We've been talking about it. I've been talking about it since August. It's not a surprise. They act like, oh, it's a big surprise, big surprise. It's not a big surprise. Not at all. But I'm glad it's happening. That's for sure. I am glad that it's happening. How about you? Are you looking forward to the Global Summit? We'll go over some issues, some things about that. Our friend Gert says hello there. Hello, how you doing, Gert? Glad you could make it. So let's first let's go over my cameras one more time. Here's camera. Here's the overhead camera. This is live. Okay. That's the overhead cams. That's camera 1. This is the backyard camera, camera 2. Let me see, who the heck is this? Somebody's calling in. No idea who that was. Camera 2. This is barbecue camera, camera 3. This is maple tree camera, camera 4. And then this is camera 5. So I have 5 cameras today. 5 cameras that I'm controlling. I wanted to test this system out because I had a little bit of a problem with it when I was doing a live stream initially. So Garrett says, yes, I do. I just got my ticket. Hopefully you used Final Cut Pro FCPRadio 10 to get 10% off. Or if you've been there before, you can get a little bit more than that. If you're somebody who's been there prior, you can get a little bit more, 15% off, I think, for people that have already been there once. So it's not too bad. I can control all 5 cameras. Not too bad. What do you think? FCPX Global Summit is coming up 3 weeks from today. It starts. I will be live streaming as much as I can. I can't do the sessions, obviously, but any kind of news, I'll come on and we'll talk about it as it's going on for people who can't make it. And even if people can make it, we can come on and chat about it. Maple cam. I mostly have oak trees in my backyard, but this one is a giant maple. It hasn't really changed yet. It's getting ready to. But it hasn't changed yet. So let's talk about the Global Summit. What's going on at the Global Summit? And let's talk about some other Final Cut Pro news to get started. As you know, this is Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live. And who's getting an iPhone 12? That's the question I have. Who is getting an iPhone 12? How many people, if you haven't got one already? Hello from the UK. P Weeks 123. I was saying Pweeks, but it's P Weeks 123. Hello from the UK. How you doing? So I'll be buying an iPhone 12 Pro Max 512 gigabytes space gray. Ernest White says he is getting one. Ernest, what kind are you getting? What variety? Garrett says perhaps in 2021, but not in 2020. Okay, well, I'm going to be selling my 11 Pro Max 512 Space Gray, and I'm pretty sure it has Apple Care for another year, so anybody could buy it and feel safe. But that's another story. I'll probably sell it. I could sell it to Apple, but they only give you $500, and I think it's worth more than that. Let's see what else is going on here. Apple possibly references unreleased 16-inch MacBook Pro. Garrett says, too much going wrong in 2020. I want to keep mine a bit longer, have my iPhone 11 now. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's completely understandable, Garrett. That's completely understandable. Since I didn't go to NAB this year, I had funds available to buy this new one, and they have enough features in video recording, so it makes it worthwhile for me to get it. It has enough better low light, bigger sensor, marginally better optical zoom, 2.5 instead of the 2.0. So it's marginally better. So I understand. I mean, if I couldn't afford it, I wouldn't be getting it, but I can afford it, so I'll be getting it. Apple possibly references unreleased 16-inch MacBook Pro. Now, I got a big kick out of this because in the article, let me see if I can pull that article up. In the article, they say that Apple said they're going to be releasing Intel Macs for years to come in the article. That's not the case. That's not what Apple said. Apple said they're going to be releasing Mac OS versions for Intel for years to come. They didn't say they were going to release Intel Macs for years to come. They said they're going to release Mac OS versions for Intel for years to come. What they said about Intel is Intel Macs in the pipeline that we're really excited about. And they said Macs plural. We've only seen one Mac, so this new 16-inch MacBook Pro could very well be an Intel version. As a matter of fact, I would say it would be because they've been working on it for probably a year or longer. And it'll take a long time to get to the silicon version. What do you think? Let me pull that article up. Let me pull that article up. You know why? One of the reasons that I am getting a new version of the iPhone is because it's my main camera now. I use it all the time. I've been shooting with it. So let me pull this up. Here we go. So this is the article. Let me pull it up here. This is the article. Apple possibly references unreleased 16-inch MacBook Pro in latest boot camp update. This is Apple Terminal. But the problem is, this is the problem. While Apple's next major Mac release will be Apple Silicon, it still plans to update its Intel lineup for years to come. It does not, nobody said that. Okay? Tim Cook did not say it plans to update its Intel lineup for years to come. That is incorrect. What they said was Mac OS for Intel is going to be updated for years to come. Not the Mac lineup, not the Mac lineup. That's incorrect. I tweeted at them, but they had never responded, so I guess they either didn't see it or whatever, but that's not correct. Garrett says, I'm investing in new camera gear now. Got a Sennheiser MKE 200 last week. I got the 600, MKE 600. I really like it. Going for a new GoPro 9 soon and also be looking for a new MacBook Pro. But I'm doing the same thing, Garrett, but I'm using my iPhone. The iPhone 12 is one of my new cameras this year. That's the only reason I got it. I don't care about anything else. I just care about the video quality, and they've upgraded it. So I will be updating mine as well. Let me move this down a little bit. iPhone works great. I use it with the DJI Osmo 3 now. I have a 2 or 3. Eric Emmerich says no new 16-inch MacBook Pro till next year, in my opinion. Too many updates in a short time. I would bet you a coffee we're going to see the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and it's going to be Intel, not going to be silicon. The Apple Silicon is going to be something else. However, during the Global Summit, 3 weeks from today, that week, Apple's going to have the event. I've been talking about it since August. Everybody else is jumping on the bandwagon now, but they're not referencing the Final Cut Pro Global Summit. That was obvious to most of us that something's going to happen that week. Apple is presenting. It makes sense that Apple would release something that week for the Final Cut Pro community as well, because the MacBook Pro is probably the most popular Mac, and the majority of editors in Final Cut Pro use the MacBook Pro. But I think it's going to be Intel. I think the silicon version's a year or so out. I don't need all that space on an iPhone. I have now the 11 Max Pro 256. I would never fill up 512. I have not filled it up, but I've had to empty it multiple times. I just film with it all the time. So that's my main camera. So when you say you're updating your camera, that's what I'm doing as well. Garrett says iPhone 12 camera specs are great. They're not just a small increment from one year to the next. They're gigantic. So I'll be getting one. Eric Emmerich says iMac Pro is due for the update. It absolutely is. And that would be another one of the Intel Macs that we're excited about that's in the pipeline. That would be my guess. They introduced the iMac. That's the only one so far. So I would think that they're going to be introducing another Intel, maybe two more. And there's going to be a Mac event the week of the Global Summit. Okay, Final Cut Pro Global Summit, Apple dictates when that's happening because they have to schedule around Apple's schedule if they want Apple to participate. And they do want Apple to participate. That's one of the biggest draws. So Apple schedules that week in November. And I'm sure they have some things on their mind. They've pre-announced a new version of Final Cut Pro is coming later this year. When they released the iPhone 12, they said a new version of Final Cut Pro is coming. So therefore, that's the week, I'm guessing. I'm not necessarily at the summit itself. Apple's presenting on Thursday. Let's pull that up. Apple is presenting on Thursday. So here it is, FCPX Global Virtual Summit. So November the 16th to the 22nd, 6th edition. This is my 5th one. I've been here for 5. I didn't go to the very first one. Featured speakers, et cetera, et cetera. So the program is probably not all the way filled out yet, but it has a lot of it's being filled out, let's say. Monday. Opening ceremony starts at 10:45 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. FMC is stationed in New York. That's why they are doing Eastern Daylight, which is on the East Coast. So these are all, the ones in green are still to be filled out. They have 3 weeks, afternoon break, long break, and these are the ones that are already Ian Robertson, Lee Herbert, Nick Haraz. Sponsors, Steve Martin, of course, our friend Ian Anderson, Jeff Greenberg, Master of Ceremonies, etc. But this is the big one. Apple Day, Thursday, November the 19th. Stay tuned for more details. We've been talking about that. I've been talking about that since July. Before they announced Apple was going to participate, I said, I am going to be interested if Apple participates and what they're going to be talking about. Well, that's exactly what happened. Maple Cam, Barbecue Cam. That barbecue's in my backyard. This house, I have a house that was built in the early 60s, and they built that barbecue there. That's my firewood for the year, and an old lamppost that we don't use anymore. I may hook it up at some point, but not yet. And then there's the backyard where you can see the barbecue very small in the left-hand corner. But I just wanted to test all these cameras to see if I can get them all working and they stay working and they're solid and et cetera, et cetera. And so far, they've been perfect. Everything's working perfect. How about a 20-inch iPad? I would love that. Would take LumaFusion to new levels and set the stage for FCPX on iPad. What's the biggest size now? Is it 12 inches? 20 inches seems like gigantic. I think that was when we were waiting on the FCP update. I'm not sure what you're referring to. I've been talking, once they released the update in August, the end of August, I said, first off, I said there's going to be a bug fix within 30 days. There was a bug fix within 30 days. The Final Cut Pro 10.4.10 came out, and there it was 30 days later. So I wasn't necessarily expecting another update this year for Final Cut Pro. Always glad to have it. I mean, we got a phone call here talking about it, didn't we? Talking about the update to Final Cut Pro. We did. So we make it another update, another phone call today. Who in the heck knows? Who in the heck knows? So Garrett says, are we going to see you in the different angles during the Final Cut Pro Summit? I'll be in some of those. Yeah, sure. I'll be in some of those without a doubt. But I'm going to be reporting even beyond what the official summit is. I'm going to be reporting on FCPRadio TV Live. In between sessions, I'm going to be talking about different things as much as I can. I'm not going to be reporting the sessions themselves. That's not what I'll be doing, but I'll be reporting other news we'll be able to discuss. For people that can't go to the summit or are not going to the summit, Final Cut Pro Radio TV will be the place to find out what's going on at the summit. I've always reported at the summits since the very first one 5 years ago. When I started Final Cut Pro TV Live, 175 shows. This is the 175th show that I've done. They started at the FCPX Creator Summit. That's when they started. Nobody's done as many live shows about Final Cut Pro as I have, not even close. So, are you going to see me at the different angles during the summit? Sure, I'll be there, some of them. What cameras are they? I have one of them is a GH5. Let me see if I can pull that one up. That's my GH5, that one, the barbecue cam. The other cameras are, this is an iPhone. I'm not sure which one it is. It's an iPhone. This is a Mevo cam. This is another streaming camera specifically. It's specifically for streaming. So this is a Mevo Start that I got. This is an iPhone 6S Plus, I think. Something like that, 6S Plus. I think that's what it is. Wasn't there rumors of another Final Cut Pro update? You mean after 10.4.9? Well, after 10.4.9, I said there's going to be a bug fix update. That was 10.4.10. That came out. As soon as 10.4.9 came out and people were reporting, too many people were reporting bugs. I saw too many reports from too many different sources. So I surmised they'd have a bug fix within 30 days, and they did. Within 30 days, they had 10.4.10. Now, the question is, what are they going to call the new update to Final Cut Pro? Apple has pre-announced a new update to Final Cut Pro coming in this year. Nuno says, do you offer video editing services? I sure do. That's what I do for a living. I'm a filmmaker / editor / producer. Eric Emmerich says, iPad 12, now that's the largest. That's what I thought. That seems like it's pretty big. Emir says, what streaming service are you using? I'm using 2 streaming services. My application that I'm using is Ecamm Live, which is fantastic. It's a fantastic subscription service. You got to subscribe to it. I love Ecamm Live. I'm very, very active on their boards. And the other one I'm using is Restream.io to broadcast to YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope TV all at the same time. I feed them one stream. They feed it out to the different platforms. Congratulations. I'm not sure what. Wait, is there a live in-person version of the summit? Not in person. No, we're not getting together in person. No. But there are going to be some social events. I presume they're going to use Zoom or something like that. That's what I presume, and that's what he's talking about, some of the Zoom chats. How do you expect Apple to deliver their presentation and Q&A for the summit? Pre-recorded keynote? Probably pre-recorded. Typically you're right. They have 2 events typically for Apple, and it's called Apple Day. Maybe we'll get a tour of something. I don't know. Usually we go to One Infinite Loop. Apple does a presentation on stage. I think they'll probably, they're not going to do it live. They're going to do it a pre-recording of whatever they have new. This is my prediction. They're going to show us Final Cut Pro on the Apple Silicon Mac, maybe Final Cut Pro on the new MacBook Pro, but they'll also be showing us probably the new version of Final Cut Pro that Apple has already pre-announced. Those are the 3 things. They might have some other surprises. Who knows? But as far as the question goes, that's going to be interesting. Q&A for the summit. We used to, the last three times at the summit, we could submit questions in advance to the Final Cut Pro team for them to answer when we saw they came to us to the hotel in a private session, no cameras, no audio recording, no video recording, just the people in that room and Apple, and we could ask them one-on-one questions. They were very forward. They were very open about things, and they said this not to leave this room. So I haven't seen any leaks, so I presume that there weren't any leaks, nothing major. I mean, the only thing you can talk about was some of the things that are already common knowledge. They listen to every single request that you make, every bug fix that you submit. They have a person full-time that reads those, okay? So that's something they talk about. They say it all the time, but I'm just reiterating that. Think Surface Pro in size. He's going for the 18 to 20-inch Pro. Feels like they're getting away from the X brand, Final Cut Pro 11. We'll talk about that in a minute, Daniel. Daniel Suzuki says. Congratulations to the 175th Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live. So one of the things I'm going to be doing during the summit, I'm going to be reporting live as much as I can for people that can't make it. I mean, there's 3 to 4 million Final Cut Pro users. You know, there might be 1,000, 500 to 1,000 people, who knows, 300, whatever there are, going to the summit, the virtual summit this year. So there's a lot of people that are not going. I'll be taking care of you. I'll be taking care of the people that cannot go and just reporting as much as I can, let you know what's going on so you're not left out in the cold. Christopher says, hello from snowy Canada. Christopher, I've seen a lot of your photographs. I'm very impressive. A lot of animals. So did you hear a new Final Cut Pro is coming? Yeah, we've been talking about it for like a month. Jeff? Absolutely. Apple announced it at the iPhone keynote. They announced a new version of Final Cut Pro is coming later this year. So so not only we have Apple Silicon, a new version of Final Cut Pro, where's Big Sur? Big Sur's not even released yet. Usually they release the OS in September. Here it's going to be November in a few days, and it's still not out of beta. So Eric says, still waiting on Big Sur. Golden Master thought it'd be here by now, having issues with XDR display on beta. That's interesting. Jeff says, there you go. Christopher says, do you feel that Apple, with the release of iPhone 12, can bring HDR more mainstream? Yes, more mainstream, absolutely. They're going to sell millions of that phone. I don't know if they're going to be forcing YouTube and Facebook to support it, but it's certainly nudging them in that direction. Right? It's certainly nudging them in that direction. I think Final Cut Pro 10.5 won't be released until Big Sur is out, and I think the same day. We're going to talk about that. I'm not sure. You know, they opened up the door for double digits in the third decimal point when they released Final Cut Pro 10.4.10. So if 10.5 is not ready, they certainly could put out 10.4.11. I don't know. I don't have a clear idea what's going to happen there. My guess, Bruce Babcock says, is Silicon Mac announced before the summit. May be hard to enforce NDA for virtual summit. So there's a couple of things about that, Bruce. Number one is, absolutely it can be before the summit, but it's going to be summit week. It's going to be the summit week. I'm not saying they're going to announce the Silicon Mac at the summit. I'm saying they're going to demo Final Cut Pro on the Silicon Mac at the summit. Apple corporate is going to be making the event for the Silicon Mac. They're going to have their own big Mac event. Tuesday, Probably. Apple's presenting on Thursday, so 48 hours later. I'm just saying they're going to give us a demo of Final Cut Pro on the Silicon Mac, maybe the new 16-inch MacBook Pro, whatever else they have in store. So I'm not saying it's going to be announced at the summit. I'm saying it's going to be announced during the summit. It's not going to be announced. Apple's going to do their own event, completely independent of the summit. The summit is Final Cut Pro specific. It includes hardware a lot of times. They had, last year wasn't so much of any kind of a big surprise, but all the other years have been. So FCPX 2021. Jeff Arbala says, this will be my first Creative Summit. Looking forward to it. Jeff, I hope you use the code FCPRadio 10 to get 10% off of your admission. So that last iteration of 10.4 would be more of a cleanup version for those who don't want to move to Big Sur right away. No, this is going to be a feature. This is going to be features. They had the 10.4.9 was a big feature update, big for a point release. 10.4.10 was a bug fix for 10.4.9. 10.4.11 will have new features as well. Jeff Arbala says, yes, he did. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff's been on the show before. So let's go back to this. One of the Intel Macs we're really excited about, or will it be the first Apple Silicon Mac? Don't know. In 3 weeks, November 16th through the 22nd, FCPX Global Virtual Summit. An association with Apple. That's important. They've always been in association with Apple, and Apple has said that publicly. Final Cut Pro Radio is a media sponsor. Get 10% off with discount code FCPRadio 10. If this is your first time going to the summit, FCPRadio 10. Apple has pre-announced an update to Final Cut Pro is coming this year. Apple's Final Cut Pro team has debuted new versions of FCPX more times than not at the FCPX Creative Summit. Okay? They introduced 10.3 at the Creative Summit, 10.4 at the Creative Summit, 10.4.4. All were but they all were demoed at the Creative Summit. Now, I think it was 10.4. They actually mentioned it the day before. No, it was 10.3. I think it was 10.3. Apple had, just like this year, it's just exactly the same thing. Apple had their event when they introduced the 2016 MacBook Pro. Okay? I think that was on a Wednesday. The Creative Summit started on a Thursday. I think that's right. It might have been a Thursday and a Friday. But anyway, Apple, the day before Apple had their 16-inch MacBook Pro event, Apple event. The Creative Summit, during that event, the woman, I'll never forget this, she was showing the 16-inch MacBook Pro with the touch bar and everything. And I'll never forget this. During the event, she casually mentions, oh, by the way, that's the new version of Final Cut Pro. This was the day before the summit. Just casually mentions, oh, by the way, that's the new version of Final Cut Pro. Same thing can happen this year. Apple does their Mac event with Apple Silicon, maybe the new 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro, maybe the new Intel iMac, whatever, and they might show a version of Final Cut Pro, the new version. However, you're not going to get an in-depth presentation like you are by the Final Cut Pro team at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit on Thursday. They're going to show us something, and I think it's going to be something new. I say no event for Silicon Intro, just a big Apple.com webpage splash. Too many people have already said there's an Apple Mac event in November, in the middle of November. John Prosser's one of them. Somebody else has said the same thing. I say the same thing. Why not? They don't have to do it live. They just do a presentation and they introduce it, and it gets a lot of attention, more attention than just an ad on their news page. Christopher says, it'll be interesting to see how Apple Silicon will compare in performance to Apple Pro hardware when all the dust settles, when we have seen an iPad kick. Yeah, but that's not, listen, have you seen the Mac Pro? I forget which one of the pundits did it. He had a 16K timeline, a multicam 8K clip on a 16K timeline on his Mac Pro. You're not going to get that on the Apple Silicon Mac to begin with. There's no comparison for what this beast can do. Same with the iMac Pro. It's a powerful machine. It's going to take them a year or two to get up to that level. I don't expect to be that much different, the very first Apple Silicon Mac to be that much difference. Plus, there could be bugs. Could be hardware bugs that have to be worked out. I'll have to think about before I get my first Apple Silicon. It'll probably be the 16-inch MacBook Pro whenever that comes out. That's the only Mac that I'm really going to update. My Mac Pro is good for another 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. I can place PCIe cards in here day in and day out. I can update the graphics card. I can update all kinds of things. Maybe not. I can even update the CPU if the new Intel CPU fits this motherboard, because the CPU is socketed. And people, when they bought the Mac Pro, bought the 8-core and then upgraded to the 28-core themselves, and it worked. So I don't think the initial Silicon Mac, it'll be interesting for the same comparison, a 13-inch MacBook Pro, a 12-inch MacBook, whatever it's going to be, it'll be comparable to that. It'll be better probably than that version, but it's not a 16-inch, say you got a 12-inch Silicon Mac. It's not going to compete with the 16-inch MacBook Pro. It's no way. But anyway, question, is there a way to find out what the yellow warning triangles on a project means? Oh boy. Probably an effect, perhaps, a title, something's missing in your project. That's what it means. There's something missing that you didn't have. If you made a custom title and it's not on this machine, you could get that. It's all kinds of things that can be. One of the things I wish Apple would do is make these warning signs more specific and give you more information. Not just a yellow triangle. Lets you hover over it and it tells you what's missing, what the effect name is, whether it's a title, whether it's a custom effect. Here we go. Maple Cam. Barbecue Cam. This is the barbecue in my backyard. I don't know if we ever used it. This is one of my control things. This is my hardware control. This is my switcher. Here's the hotline to Apple. We might get a call. It's hard to tell. Let's go back and finish this up. So Apple's Final Cut Pro team has debuted new versions of Final Cut Pro more times than not at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. So I expect them to introduce a new version. Not, once again, Apple could have it at their Mac event the day before. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about demoing it that week. So whenever it comes out that week, I think the Final Cut Pro team will have some cool stuff to show us, some new stuff. The question is, will it be 10.4.11? Place your bets. Final Cut Pro 10.5 or Final Cut Pro 11. Who the heck knows? They could drop the X completely, right? We don't know. For those keeping count, FCPX Global Summit, FCPX team, Final Cut Pro team presenting at the Global Summit, Silicon Mac this year, update to Final Cut Pro this year, Apple Silicon Mac event mid-November. Five things that are happening very, very likely the week of the Global Summit. And I think they're all going to be hovered around each other. Once again, Apple will do their own event. That's for sure. So I had to return my Rode Wireless Go black mics 2 times under warranty. The third replacement came back. Will this one work as expected? Good question. Good question. Put that back where it belongs. What was happening was the transmitter would just go wonky. It would just discharge in a matter of 30 seconds. That's what was happening. It's what's interesting, this time looked like they sent mine back with one new one. I'm not sure exactly what they did, but this one seems to be working. It's not a discharging, so I'm very, very happy about that. At least not so far. At least not so far. It seems to be working. What would happen is the transmitter would just, you could see it going down. I put a video up on Twitter. It just went down in a matter of like 30 seconds or 1 minute. So they fixed it anyway. All right, let's get some more comments here. So Eric Emmerich says, what will they show at a Silicon Intro event? Speed? Hard to show that. There was only a significant hardware redesign would justify an event. Like I said, they're going to show Final Cut Pro on the Apple Silicon. That's what the Global Summit, the Apple presentation there. There's going to be a separate Apple presentation. Apple Corporate, I think, is going to do their own Mac event. It's easy for them to do these virtual events compared to a live event when you have an audience and you got to invite press members. They're not doing that, they just do the virtual event, and they're going to show us Final Cut Pro 10 on the Silicon at the Summit. Apple's going to do their own corporate event. Maybe they'll introduce AirTags, don't know, AirPods Studio Pro, whatever those headphones are, a new iPad Pro, and they're going to do the Apple Silicon. They have to do an event for the Apple Silicon. That's a big deal. That's a big change in Apple, in the hardware. So I think they're going to do one of those as well. So anyway, I think Apple's going to do their own event, Apple Corporate, and then Apple, the Creative Summit Final Cut Pro team is also going to do an Apple Final Cut Pro event that's going to use whatever came out during the Apple event. The Final Cut Pro team does not operate independently. They're controlled by Apple Corporate, so they have to do what they say, but it's the FCPX Creative Summit, so I think they'll show us a new version of Final Cut Pro on the Apple Silicon. It's going to be more than speed. I don't think there's going to be that much difference, but I think there's going to be differences, obviously. I wonder if the T2 chip is also replaceable. That I don't know. On the Mac Pro, he says. That I don't know. Maybe by Apple. Maybe by Apple. My coworker hates the magnetic timeline and says he'd love to lock the music tracks. Well, there's a way you can get around the... You can lock the music tracks. There's a way to do that. I've been doing it since day one. If I want a track locked, I lock it. Here's how I do it. I place a 1 second or 5 second slug all the way at the beginning of the timeline, right? 1 second, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever you want. Slug all the way beginning at the magnetic timeline. And then I link clips that I don't want to move, to that clip. So if I have a music track, or if I have a secondary storyline and I link it to the anchor clip, I can do everything I want in the magnetic timeline, but the anchor clip keeps that clip stationary. What I use it for a lot is for markers, timeline markers, rather than clip markers. Final Cut Pro has no way to do timeline markers. So I'll put a title and I'll anchor it at this anchor clip all the way at the beginning of my timeline, and I'll place markers in that timeline. And when I do all my adjustments in the main timeline, they don't move. They stay at 1 minute. They stay at 2 minutes. They stay at 3 minutes because I have it anchored to the anchor clip all the way at the beginning of the timeline. That's how you do music tracks too, the same way. Exactly the same way. What a multicam setup. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Oh, which one of the guys, one of the pundits, when they got the Mac Pro, 16K timeline, and then they had, let me see if I can pull that up here. And then they had Mac Pro. Maybe I can pull it up. Mac Pro. Oh, maybe not. I don't see it. But anyway, here, I'm going to give you a view of what I'm looking at. Check this out. This is all the controls that I have right now. If you can see over here, these are the comments that are coming in. These are the ones that I add in Ecamm Live. And then the ones over here, I'm just monitoring from Restream.io. Restream is the one that's bringing in the comments into YouTube from Facebook. Okay? And then down below here is my scenes and overlays. And then there's my audio controls over there. And I have interview mode turned off. That's what I'm seeing, what I just showed you. Apple will have cool stuff, absolutely. I cannot imagine the Final Cut Pro team not showing us the something new for Final Cut Pro. Eric Emmerich says, show him the P key. Yeah, but the P key is a position tool. That's not the same thing what I'm talking about. You can actually lock tracks in Final Cut by anchoring them to an anchor clip all the way at the beginning of the magnetic timeline. You just do Option Command and then click, and it'll anchor to that clip, and that clip will not move with the magnetic timeline. I do it all the time. I do it for markers more than anything. I do it for markers. And sometimes music tracks. I don't want music tracks jumping around when I'm doing editing, so I anchor them. That's all. It's always been available. I've been doing that since day one. When do you think we'll have to pay for a Final Cut Pro 10 update? So one of the things, if you ever read the terms of service of Final Cut Pro, is they can charge, they said they are reserving the right to charge at any point after the first major update, which is 10.1. So that can happen. That can happen. But I think they're probably selling 3 to 4 million copies at this point. I think they're probably doing okay. And the more features they add, the more people buy it. I don't know if there's any legal reason why they'd have to do that. I don't know. But we'll have to see. I don't expect it this year. So here's the thing, Bruce. If Apple intends to charge for an update to Final Cut Pro 10, they should give us advance warning. They should start a month, 2 months, 3 months out saying, hey, we got this new version of Final Cut Pro coming out, and we're going to have to charge for it. Don't surprise us just showing up with the cost on the day that it comes out. Now, if they go to Final Cut Pro 11, Is that Final Cut Pro 10? No. That could be a new version they would charge for. Not saying they will. I'm saying they could. Okay? So let's see how that goes. I don't expect any charge this year. Maybe not next year. We'll have to see how it goes. But they should tell us in advance. Don't just spring it on us the day it's released. I think we'll see Big Sur for sure, which opens the door to 10.5 release. I'm not sure what Big Sur 10.5, 10.4.10 runs on Big Sur. I don't think they're that tied in. I think there's some tie-ins for sure. But yeah, that's the other thing. Big Sur will be released probably that same time at that same event, if not before. Maybe they'll go to 11 and get rid of the stigma of 10. Yeah, everybody thinks that's a good idea. I had Michael Cioni on, and he was saying they should just rename it. Even though it's the same program, they should just come up with an update and just say, we're not calling it Final Cut Pro 10 anymore. We're calling it whatever the new version is, and that might help get rid of it. He put that out there. Doubt they would force a paid upgrade for Final Cut Pro 10. Daniel says, they're not forcing anything. They're not forcing you. You just stay with the old version if you don't want, like any other software. At some point, they may charge us for it. That's, we've had it for 9 years with no charge. They may or may not. It's up to Apple. Pre-ordered my Moment Pro case, ready to shoot HDR and edit natively in Final Cut Pro. Hard to believe that ability is at hand on a phone. That is incredible. I'm waiting. I'm getting the Pro Max, so I got to wait for the Pro Max cases. And I got which one do I have? I have the heavy-duty case. It's a little bit thicker for my 11, so I'll get the same thing for the 12 Pro Max when it comes out. I have the lenses already, and they're fantastic. I really like them. And Dolby Vision, no less. I know, it's incredible. Manish says, hi, Richard. Some people don't know how important that magnetic timeline is until you do a 2-hour dock. The magnetic timeline is the most divisive thing about Final Cut Pro 10, right? It most certainly is. There's the barbecue cam. Here's the maple tree cam. This is the backyard cam. Overhead cam. This is the overhead cam. And this is the main cam. So, I'm Mantish from India. How are you, Richard? I'm fine. Thank you very much for tuning in from India. Let's see what this long comment is. Apple Silicon is going to be a significant game changer on different level. I'm so ready for this to happen. It's like Macintosh has the except right, Jason, it's certainly going to be a game changer. I don't think the initial one's going to be a game changer. I don't think that the initial Silicon Macs are going to compete with iMac Pros, with the 16-inch MacBook Pro or the Mac Pro. There's no way it can. Not unless they're really more advanced than what I think. So it'll be a game changer over a period of years as it matures and as they get more sophisticated, but not initially. Initially, it's going to be almost a novelty. Yeah, I think if they go to 11, who knows? I really don't, it doesn't bother me one way or the other. I mean, I'd rather have it for free, but if they don't, then that's fine. Tim Musto says, always appreciate you reporting from the summit. It'll be a first-time ticket holder this year. Very good, Tim. Thank you very much. It's not likely. Apple sells hardware even though they have their own apps as well. Yes, they do sell hardware. They also sell Final Cut Pro. They also sell compressor. They also sell Motion. Jeff says, Richard, did you cut all that wood? He's talking about this wood. I did not cut it. I have 3 cords. You can't see it all, but there's 3 cords of wood, but I heat my house with a wood-burning stove every winter. So I bought it this year, and they stacked it for me. You can't, this is about a quarter of how long that is. It's 8 feet, no, it's 4 feet wide and 4 feet tall and 16 feet long. That is. See the leaves coming down. You can't see them there. Let's see if the maple tree has leaves. There's maple trees holding on to its leaves for a while. I've cut wood in the past, Jeff, but I did not cut that wood. But I, did not cut that wood. Do you use OBS for all of that? No, I use Ecamm Live. I've been a big proponent of Ecamm Live for a year, 2 years, I think January. I've been using Ecamm Live. I just did a search. I was just doing my phone and iPads and Mac before that, just streaming to one service. And I did a search for Mac, the best Mac streaming software. Ecamm Live came to the top. We need to get barbecue cam trending. Barbecue cam just looked like it just went out. Anyway, there's the backyard. You can see the barbecue on the left-hand side there. Super powerful, yes. Yes. Anyway, I'm excited. I'm not sure what everybody's thinking about the Creative Summit. I got some more news coming about the Creative Summit, but looks like one of my batteries went dead. Well, that was fun. Garrett says, walk to the garage to get our car back, 2 new tires, listening to Final Cut Pro Radio all the time. Thank you very much, Garrett. Appreciate it. Like I said, I'm going to be broadcasting. I'm going to be reporting on the summit as much as I can. I'm not going to report anything that I want reported, but I think I can do, reports with some of the sessions and some of this behind the scenes stuff. And hopefully the Apple presentation is going to be interesting. And I'll tell you why, because, let me see, 3 out of the last 4, well, let's just say it this way. I'm not sure how they can do an NDA online, and I don't think they have to do an NDA. 3 of the summits, when they introduced new versions of Final Cut Pro, we could immediately talk about it on social media. They said, take pictures, post them on social media. So I expect that'll be the same thing that happens this time. I expect that whatever they show us will be something that's going to be publicly ready to be shown at the same time, especially if Apple corporate does their Apple Silicon event like on Tuesday, and suppose they preview the Apple Silicon with Final Cut Pro. There you go, new version of Final Cut Pro. New Apple Silicon on Tuesday, just suppose. Wednesday and then Thursday, the Final Cut Pro team will go do a much deeper dive into it. Don't you think that's a possibility? That's what I think is going to happen. I would not be surprised to see the new version of Final Cut Pro and Apple Silicon announced at an Apple event on Tuesday, and then show us new version of Final Cut Pro. Eric says Apple has never had an event in November. Never. That doesn't make any difference. They also never released a major version of an update to Final Cut Pro with features in August. And they did this year. So things have changed since they're not doing live events, but I think absolutely they're going to do an event. Go on Twitter and look. Everybody talks about it. The version of Final Cut Pro. Oh, the Apple Mac. Here's a screenshot of my my screen. This is what I'm seeing. Over here, look at Eric Emmerich, his comment. If I click that, it'll add to the broadcast. So Jason Williams says, I can't wait for Ian Anderson's book to come out, especially after this event. His book's coming out any time now. I'll be getting a copy and I'll be talking about that. And maybe Ian will give a discount to Final Cut Pro Radio TV listeners. That'll be cool. To show off Apple Silicon capabilities they need to show a Final Cut version that runs on it, to put it through its paces, give us reason to use Apple Silicon. Apple Silicon's not just for Final Cut Pro, although that's probably one of the biggest things. Waiting on that new Logic Pro book as well. I thought that was supposed to be out in September. You mean tell me it's not out yet? I don't know if I'm going to get it or not. I always buy these books and I never read them. I'm not sure what the heck that's about, but I agree. The Logic Pro. Logic Pro is updated to 10.5 on the middle of May, right in the heart of the worst part of the pandemic. And the Logic team got 10.5 out and they released it. And then Apple said there's going to be a Logic Pro 10.5 book coming out in September. I guess it's not out yet if you haven't seen it. I don't know what the deal is with that. They already had a Silicon event at WWDC. They just previewed. That wasn't a Silicon event. I'm telling you, Eric, I'll bet you a coffee, Apple's having an Apple Mac event in the middle of November during the week of the Global Summit. That was not an Apple Silicon event, not by any stretch of the imagination. That was WWDC. This will be dedicated to Apple Macs, whatever the first Silicon Mac. They could surprise us with the second Silicon Mac and the new MacBook Pro, maybe the iMac Pro Intel version. It's all kinds of things. We will see. We will see. We will indeed. We will indeed. They're going to have it. People have been talking about it for a while. Anything else we want to talk about before I head out of here? Maple Cam. This is the one side of my yard. This is Final Cut Pro Radio HQ backyard. I have about an acre and a half here in good old Carroll County, Maryland, on the east coast of the USA. I have checked the peach print and no word on the book. Might have double checked that. Yeah, I think it should be out. Completely agree. Silicon event in November on the way with new MacBooks, probably. Here's what would be a surprise. If that new 16-inch MacBook Pro is Apple Silicon, that would be a big surprise. Jason says, thank you for your shows. I have not caught it in a couple of weeks, but it never disappoints. These shows, since I started streaming, have been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. I've lost track of how many times they've been viewed. Or the Mac Mini. Well, the low end of the Mac lineup, the Mac Mini, 12-inch MacBook, a new 12-inch MacBook Pro, 13-inch MacBook Pro is what most people are saying. The Mac Mini would be a shoo-in because they already have that running for the developers. So new motherboards, swap things out. I don't think they're going to change the form factor at all. I'll buy the modular Mac Pro in a few years. The one I have is pretty modular. I can swap out graphics cards, afterburner cards. I can put hard drives in there. I can take the CPU out and put a new CPU. I'll be interested. I don't need it right now, but if the new 10th generation, whatever, Intel chips will work in this motherboard. That'd be interesting if that's the case, or somebody comes up with something. That will be very, very interesting. I have 3 or 4 empty PCIe slots in this Mac Pro. All right, everyone. I think I'm going to get out of here. One thing you want to do, let me see if I can pull this up. One thing that I've started doing now is this. I've started putting these live streams right at FCPRadio.com. I'll have to turn it down. So I've put them right up here on the main page. So if you forget where everything is or want to follow along, just go to FCPRadio.com, and I'm embedding these now because I'm pre-scheduling the YouTube version, not the Facebook version, but the YouTube version. So FCPRadio.com, by the way, Final Cut Pro 10.4 is 34 months old, but it got a shot of adrenaline. 10.4.9, new update for Final Cut Pro is on the way. Also, Final Cut Pro Radio podcast, episode 109 will be out this week. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. I haven't edited yet, but it'll be out this week. Anything else we want to talk about before we sign off here? I'm not sure. Maple Cam, doing fine. Look at all those leaves are still green. I'm just excited there's a new version of Final Cut Pro coming in the way, and they've announced it. Jason Williams says the Logic book is back ordered. That's interesting. How can it be? Is it back ordered? Did it come out? Don't know. I use Logic all the time. I use it for my podcast, editing my podcast. Yep. Don't know. Anyway, you can also join Final Cut Pro Radio over there on our Facebook group. Do I have that up here? Let me see if I have that up here. Yes, I do. Turn this off. Turn this on. So this is the Facebook group. Facebook.com Richard Taylor TV. Also, YouTube. Same thing. YouTube.com Richard Taylor TV. Of course, FCPRadio.com. You can always go there and check things out. But anyway, 3 weeks from today, the FCPX Creative Summit. The digital release is out, so I guess that's the iBooks version. Sounds like. Anyway, my name's Richard Taylor. I appreciate everybody stopping by with my 5-camera check setup. There's the Maple Cam. There's the backyard cam. There's the overhead cam. Didn't get a call from Apple today. Maybe we'll get one later this week. There's another Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live coming up on Wednesday. I'll let you know what the details about that as we get closer. But I'm excited about the Global Summit. It's going to be exciting. Apple's already said they're going to present. So I guess that's it, everyone. This is Richard Taylor. Yeah, maybe a new Final Cut Pro in the works. That's what we're thinking. Book, yes, the book. I think they will. I think they'll have a new version of the book out. Thanks, everyone, for stopping by. My name's Richard Taylor, Final Cut Pro TV Live. Tell your friends, FCPRadio.com. Talk to you later.